All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now with a roll call. And if anyone else joins us in progress, we will add their names to our list. All right, so we'll start with me, Tim Sturshine. I'm here. Maureen.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, looks like we have Jim on the line.
Yep, Jim Beatty.
All right, and then we have Jean.
I'm here.
We have Amy.
Here.
Steve.
Present.
And Shannon.
Hello, it's Shannon Samus.
All right, did I miss anyone? That's all I'm seeing on my end, but I just want to double check to make sure I'm not missing anyone. So is there anyone whose name I didn't call? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. The first item is to approve meeting minutes. We actually have two sets of meeting minutes. Due to some technical difficulties, we weren't able to get the meeting minutes for the December 9th meeting transcribed in time for our last meeting. We have sorted those issues out. So we do have two sets of minutes from the December 9th meeting and the March 10th meeting. So I would accept a motion for approval.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Steve. And a second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Gene. Okay, and with that, I guess we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Tim, yes. Gene?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Shannon?
Yes.
All right, the minutes are approved. So we're going to go ahead and then move on to our first agenda item in the program. So you will notice that items A and B are listed as separate items on the program. I'm kind of going to give a presentation that covers both A and B, so both Title VI and the Public Participation Plan, because they are somewhat interrelated. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the presentation here. Maybe. Give me just a second. Okay, there we go. All right. So these are two separate plans that we're working on that we would like some public feedback on. So I'm going to give kind of a brief presentation about both of these two plans and kind of let you guys know some of the content that's in them and some of what we're looking for. So the first plan is the Title VI plan. So this plan, basically the key point of this is that it is trying to ensure that we have procedures in place that allow everyone to participate in the planning process. So when we ask for feedback about, say, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan or the TIP or some of those other things that we bring forth that we want public input on, that everyone has a fair opportunity to comment and give their feedback on, assuming they want to. And so one of the big pieces in there is my first bullet point, that it includes the limited English proficiency language assistance. So in Tippecanoe County, there are 3 languages that have what would be considered a high enough threshold of speakers to kind of warrant accommodation for those languages. So that would be Spanish, Korean, and Chinese. And the plan also does detail the fact that if other translation services are requested by a citizen, that we can provide those, but it will take a little longer to get something besides one of those 3 primary languages. It does also have information for the planning work we do in both Carroll County and Tippecanoe County. We have a grant through the Indiana Department of Transportation that allows us to do some work in Carroll County. Since they're too small to have their own MPO, we do a little bit of basic planning work for them. And so because of that, we need to have a mechanism in place for people to comment on that especially if they feel that we are planning things in such a way that it would discriminate against them. So the last bullet there, the complaint process. So there is a slightly different complaint process for both Tippecanoe County and Carroll County. In Tippecanoe County, we have a Human Relations Commission, and that is the board that would review any complaints about our planning work. And in Carroll County, there is a Title VI coordinator. There's someone who's designated as that, and that person would review any complaints about our work there. Currently, that person is the Carroll County Highway Engineer, so he is their official Title VI person. Okay, so moving on to the next point, we are anticipating adoption of this in August, and part of the reason for that is that it requires adoption from both Tippecanoe County and Carroll County. We meet quarterly with Carroll County, so the committee that would approve this is going to meet in August, so therefore that's why we're anticipating August adoption for this plan. So some of the things that it includes within the plan, I've pulled a couple of figures from that you can see here. There is some demographic analysis to kind of try to see where there might be population groups that are minorities. So this data that is displayed here comes from the American Community Survey data. So that is the source of our data, and that's where these maps come from. I've put one example of a Tippecanoe County map on the left and a Carroll County map on the right. Okay, so the complaint procedure. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but if someone wants to file a formal complaint, there is a form that they need to fill out, and then once that form is filled out, the complaint is reviewed. So like I said, for Tippecanoe County, complaints are reviewed by the Human Relations Commission, which meets quarterly, and for Carroll County, complaints are reviewed by the Title VI coordinator. Okay, so that's the first plan that we're looking for some feedback on. The second one is the public participation plan. So this is kind of the plan to let people know what methods we're going to use to distribute information about our planning work and what sort of methods we use to reach out to people. One of which, of course, is this committee, which you guys are already on, which we're very thankful for. So kind of a brief history of this. The last time we adopted a plan was in 2007. So our old one is a little bit out of date, especially in regards to using social media for outreach, which is a much bigger thing now for local governments. So adoption for this plan is anticipated in either July or August. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is going to be. We might do this one in August as well, just to kind of sync it up with the Title VI plan, so everything's in August. And it does kind of really tie into a lot of our other plans and planning efforts. You know, we want to make sure that when we're planning things, you know, we give an adequate chance for people to comment on those, and not only to comment on them after they're done, but to be able to comment throughout the process and give feedback throughout the whole process, not just at the end after everything's already been decided. So we've really tried to do that, especially with our upcoming update to the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We did some surveys, which I know several of you on this committee were very helpful with helping us spread those around, as well as participating by filling those out for us, which we're grateful for. And we're going to continue to have some requests for feedback on that. Okay, so these are some of the key points that the public participation plan covers. So like I mentioned, social media outreach, which wasn't really covered at all in the 2007 version. And then these other two, limited English proficiency outreach, as well as outreach to other underserved populations, which can include people who are elderly or people with low incomes, for example, who may not have access to some of the same resources as other folks. So those are some of the key groups that we're trying to make sure that have a stake, that have a voice in our plan. So those are some of the things we're kind of looking at with this plan overall. So here is an example of some social media stuff. So currently we use mostly Facebook and Nextdoor to distribute information. We are working on getting stuff up and running for a Twitter, so to start using that platform. So primarily what we use social media for is to distribute announcements, surveys, and meeting notices. Sometimes these things are tied together. So for example, when we were working on the tip, which is something we talked about at our last meeting, we posted some physical meeting notices at various public locations around the community. And then we also posted some similar notices on Facebook and Nextdoor. Additionally, we can use those platforms to reply to citizen comments, which I have just an example of on the right. So that's one instance when someone had a comment specifically about the 225 bridge, and we were able to provide some information to the citizen. Okay, so limited English proficiency. So these tables are also taken from the American Community Survey, and it looks at language spoken at home. So this would be like the primary language that is spoken in a household. Obviously, English would be by far the language that's most common here. So it's excluded from these lists. We're looking at languages besides English for limited English proficiency. So as you can see, the top three for Tippecanoe County, like I said, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. A lot of that, of course, being due to Purdue's influence. And then, so the language assistance plan, which is located in the Title VI policy and limited English proficiency language assistance plan, that's a mouthful, which was what I showed previously or referenced previously with some of those maps. Kind of some of the key points of that are it starts by identifying individuals who might have limited English proficiency, and then it talks about how we can provide language assistance and outreach, staff training that would be required for when we run into situations when we have difficulties communicating with an individual, and what we can do to provide services for them, monitoring, evaluating, updating our procedures, and then finally something about how comments, questions, requests can be submitted for people who do not speak English if they want to comment on the plan. So one example of how we've been doing this is those surveys that I referenced earlier. We provided both an English version and a Spanish version so that people could submit comments or fill out the survey even simply in their native language. Okay, so some other underserved populations. So this is some more data that I have there on the left. And one of our other planning efforts is the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan. So this is something that seeks to reach out to people who are elderly, disabled, people who have a low income, people with no vehicle available, so on and so on. So some of these populations that will often use transit to get around, we want to make sure that we have adequate service available in Tippecanoe County for those people. So some of this work kind of involves our work with City Bus that we do on a regular basis. We have a staff member who regularly attends their meetings. He's kind of our liaison between our office and their office. And so we often share projects back and forth, share information, work on planning sorts of projects together. And some of that is outlined in the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan, which is yet another document. That one is also underway. I'm not sure if we're going to be having something about that at our next CPC meeting. We might, but yeah, so be watching out for that. We'll get some more details on that to you when we have them ready. Okay, so some examples of our public involvement efforts. So obviously, virtual public meetings, such as this one, have been something that have kind of really taken off due to necessity. So one thing that we do with those is when we have public comments that are given at the meetings, we compile them and document them, and we'll often include them in our plans. So for example, last September's CPC meeting, we had a pretty extensive discussion about some of the updates to the thoroughfare plan. And at that meeting, we got quite a lot of members of the public who had some very good comments and questions. And so we took that whole section of comments that were posted on Facebook and YouTube, and then our answers to them, and those are included in an appendix in the draft thoroughfare plan. So we're looking to and then also the tip would be another example of any comments we've gotten for the tip have also been included, as well as our responses to them, and those are also in an appendix in the tip. Another one would be GIS Day. So one of our staff members created a GIS story map, which is something that's a very cool tool that kind of allows you to visualize data. And we also are looking at providing a web tutorial of some of the county's public GIS tools and how users can interface with those and use them, even if they're not someone who has, training in GIS. The public website is set up to be pretty user-friendly, so that's something we're considering doing in the future. Another thing that we've had in the past that's been very successful is the Leadership Lafayette event. That is actually the picture that you see down on the bottom there. That of course was taken pre-pandemic. I think this was 2016 or 17 when this picture was taken, maybe. It was pulled from some of our files that we have. But that is something that's been a great partnership where we work with Leadership Lafayette to work with some citizens who are sort of taking a class, so to speak, about how local government works and what sorts of services they provide. So we've created some example scenarios where people would have to go around to different offices and utilize some of the services they provide to solve an issue or a problem that they might be having. So that's been very successful. We actually did have a virtual version of that last year during the pandemic, and I think this year we're hoping to bring it back to a live version. It's something that we typically do every fall. We've had some success with reaching out to the Latinx community. Last time we did an update for our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which was the 2045 plan. We went to some locations that were Hispanic-owned businesses, and we were able to provide a translator for people to talk to us through. So that was very successful. And then one last thing we had was some community center outreach efforts. So we've gone to a few different community centers throughout the cities. So like the Faith Community Center, North End Community Center. Those are a couple I can think of off the top of my head. I think we've also gone to some other places. Anyway, so what we look at when we do that is we have some information. We'll kind of set up a table or an area where we have, some kind of graphical display where people can come up and talk to us and ask questions. And we have some comment forms that people can fill out and tell us about their experiences in the community with transportation. I remember one of the times we did this, we had a gentleman who was confined to a wheelchair, and we had a very good conversation with him about some of the areas that he would like to be able to get to, but are very challenging due to some of the facilities in the area not necessarily being ADA compliant. So we got some very good feedback from him. So those are just some examples of the sorts of things that we do. And with some of these, especially the last three, we're really looking to ramp those up again now that the pandemic is calming down and trends are going in a much better direction. So we're very excited to be able to kind of reestablish some of that face-to-face communication with our citizens. Okay, so how to comment on the plan. So these next two slides are going to give the links where you can find these documents on our website. And both of them are going to ask to send comments to apc@tippecanoe.in.gov. I'm going to kind of try to leave them up for a little bit because this meeting is recorded, and I know that people may be watching later and they may want to go back and be able to find these links. So I don't want to just leave them on the screen for only a second so that, you know, someone has to pause it on exactly the right frame just so that they can, you know, see this link. That's not very user friendly. But yeah, for both of these two, there are a couple different links. And then once you go to these links, you can view the draft versions of the plans themselves. And then if there are any comments that you have or questions or any sorts of things, you can email them to apc@tippecanoe.in.gov. So we will take comments for either of those plans. Okay, so then I would like to give an opportunity to ask questions, and also one other housekeeping item. Hard copies of these plans, once they're finalized, will be available by request. And if you would really like a hard copy to review, I will figure out a way to get it to you. I think nowadays people generally tend to prefer something that they can download and scroll through and search through on their PC, but I know that that is not the case for everyone. And then also further questions, if you think of anything after the meeting, can again be sent to apc@tippecanoe.in.gov. So with that, I'm going to open the floor up to the committee for any questions they have about either of these two plans.
Hey, Tim, this is Amy.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
It sounds like you guys have already started sort of utilizing a lot of these techniques. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm curious what your sort of collected community input data, whether that's survey data or just comments, if that's if you're able to tell if the results are reflective of the community demographics, or if that's a goal of yours or not.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So typically when we ask for surveys, we try to not ask for any kind of information that would be personal identifying information. We think that people are generally not comfortable with that, which we understand, you know, in today's day and age, of course, privacy is very important. And we think that might turn some people away. But like you say, the downside is kind of that means that it is a little harder for us to know exactly how effective we are at reaching some of these potentially underserved populations. So that's why we kind of are trying to especially ramp up the social media aspect, because, you know, with social media, if there's a comment that's linked to a profile, you know, then we can perhaps kind of at least glean a little information about that citizen's situation from their publicly available information that they include on their profile. Of course, you can also sometimes glean something from some comments. Sometimes people will comment and say, you know, I'm a retired person and I really wish that the bus would take me to this location at this time, or those sorts of things. So in that case, we could kind of make some inferences about this person that would be making the comment, but it is a challenge for sure.
Thanks.
You're welcome. That was a very good question. Thank you, Amy. Any further questions from the committee?
Hey, I've got another quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where'd you get the translator services? Is that a county employee or did you guys contract with somebody?
So the answer is that depends on what type of service it is. So for the Latinx community outreach that I mentioned, we were able to work with someone who does some translations for the courts. So she was able to help us out with that. But we also, the county, have a contract with Luna Services, which is a very big translation service. So we would use them to translate documents typically. So they would be maybe more of the print translation kind of thing, whereas having an interpreter would be something maybe more local.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, last call for questions from the committee.
Tim, this is Shannon. I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is one of the goals, and I'm sorry if you said this, one of the goals to get more people involved in this particular committee, or are the goals more for when we have surveys and gathering information sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think that certainly we're happy to have more people involved in this committee, absolutely. But the scope of these plans kind of goes beyond just this committee. It's also looking at kind of any products that we produce. So, you know, we do bring a lot of those to this committee. So the tip that we brought last time, the thoroughfare plan, which we've discussed a little bit, we're going to be discussing some more about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan at upcoming meetings. So documents like that, you know, certainly this meeting is a good forum for that, but we want to have participation for people outside of this committee. We know that, you know, people can't always make it to this time. They may not be aware of the committee meeting, even if we do advertise it, you know, things happen. So a lot of this is about ways just to give people who want to give feedback the opportunity to do that. That's kind of the overall goal.
Right,
And
that makes
providing
sense.
multiple ways for people to give feedback, I think is good. You know, certainly there are some people who may not feel comfortable joining a meeting like this that's recorded and streamed. And those people may be more comfortable with an email or, you know, sending a comment or asking a question via social media. So that's kind of the goal, is to have multiple different outlets or ways for people to reach us, I guess I would say.
No, it sounds great. I just want to say I really like the idea of engagement with community centers and businesses and some things that you said, going to people where they are, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's a great idea to be updating this at this point. It's always good to keep up to speed on communicating with the public.
Okay, I also do want to provide an opportunity for any questions that may have come in on the streams. I know that there is a delay, so we are gonna wait at least a minute if nothing has come in yet. Maureen, have we had any comments on our streams yet?
No comments so far.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and give it a minute, I think, then, and then that should accommodate for any delay in the stream. So during this minute, I'm going to go ahead and flip back to these slides that have the links, just to display them once again for anyone who's watching this recorded, or anyone on the committee who wants to look at them real quick. They're kind of both titled in such a way where the titles of the links are just the names of the documents, basically. They are both available on our main page. So if you go to tippecanoe.in.gov, and then you click on the Area Plan Commission page, which is under departments, there's a drop-down box on the main page. Both of these plans are linked there, and then it will send you to these links that I have shown on the slides. So just a note, again, for anyone who is interested. Okay, that has been a minute. Maureen, do we have any comments that have come in?
Nope, there's no comments on either YouTube or Facebook.
Okay, thank you for checking on that. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is in-person meetings. So this committee, of course, used to be in person, and then COVID happened, and like many things, we transitioned to virtual meetings. Now, I think there are some pros and cons to both kinds of meetings. So what I would like to bring up for discussion today is what you guys think would be the best format. Do you think that it's better to kind of have something where we can continue to do these virtually and you guys can just join in via these GoToMeeting links, or do you think it would be better to, you know, reserve the Tippecanoe room in the county building and start meeting in person? So I'd welcome anyone's thoughts on that.
I kind of enjoy sitting at home listening to that.
Okay, thank you, Amy. That's totally fair. I get that.
Tim,
This
is
is
this,
Shannon. Oh, so, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is this meeting subject to the same type of restrictions as like the area plan and the BZA, where you have to provide the GoToMeeting link to anybody that wants it after the health emergency is over with?
Mhm.
So you really need a
Yes.
moderator in order to allow people to speak or not speak, or you're apt to be bombed somehow.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Steve. So this committee is a little bit different because it doesn't take any official actions with regards to like decisions or approvals of anything. So, you know, we're not approving any rezones, we're not approving any amendments to the transportation improvement program, we're not adopting the MTP. This committee serves as an advisory committee and a forum for people to give feedback, which is then given to you know, ultimately the policy board, which is what's required by the Federal Highway Administration to be our decision-making body. Does that cover what you were asking, Steve?
Well, is it? Do you essentially need to be able to give the link out to anybody that, or make it a public link, or can you still keep it as members of the committee, and then if somebody asks for it? Because I know that area plan and BZA, even though they're a different body, if they were to have virtual or the semi-virtual meetings, would have to give the general public the same access that the board members have.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. So I think the short answer would be no, it is a little bit different. So because we have access to the stream, which the stream link is public, and we allow for discourse through that, that kind of is the way that we allow for public comment for people who are not on the committee to be able to voice their opinion. So that is sufficient to cover that need for this committee.
Okay.
This is Gene. I think COVID has given everybody the experience of doing a lot of things online and the convenience of that. And I think it's going to be hard for people to give up some of that convenience because it saves travel times, and you can be doing wherever you are. You can still join the meeting, whether it's by phone or your desk or whatnot. So I think it ought to have a online aspect to it, no matter which way it goes, whether it's a hybrid or all online. But I think it will make a lot more people participate than what just an in-person meeting would be now.
Okay, good point.
This is Shannon. I think I'd personally like to see these meetings stay online, at least through the end of the calendar year. And that's my opinion, but kind of vibe it out from there. But as others have said, I like the convenience of this. And with its time at 6 and working till 5, it works out well that I get to eat dinner before, which means I'm more awake. And, if I'd stay downtown after work, start to get a really hungry Shannon by 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I hear you on that. All right, well, it sounds like the overwhelming opinion is that we should keep these to a virtual meeting, and that's just fine with us. So we'll continue to provide the links to you guys via email as well as stream these. So yeah, okay. So then we'll go ahead and move on to the last agenda item, which is any questions, comments, or suggestions. So is there anything from the board?
This is Jim. Do you have any updates on where the trail committee's at? Are they just starting?
Are you talking about the Big Four trail?
Well, I thought I saw in the media that the transportation group had activated a committee to plan out. Yeah, it's the Big Four, the Indianapolis to Chicago Trail.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the one. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so that committee has kind of just formed. There was a survey that was up for people that could provide some feedback. The consultant that was doing that had created the survey. I'm not sure if it's still available or not. We did have it posted on our socials, as well as we discussed it at our monthly committee meetings, the technical committee meeting and the policy board meeting. So the fact that there was a survey was mentioned at both of those two meetings last month. But yeah, it's kind of just starting off. Does that cover what you wanted to know, Jim, or do you need some more information?
No, I was just curious where they were in their process. And I didn't take the survey, but if I can find it, I will. Can you post that site in the chat or something if it's still available?
Yeah, I can probably check on that real quick.
If you can't, maybe just send that out to your mail group as an option.
Sure. Yeah. We'll see what we can do about that.
Tim, this is Maureen. I just checked and the survey looks to be closed at this time.
Oh, okay. Looks like you were a little faster than me.
Okay, that's great. So we're in the survey analysis phase.
Yes. Yeah, that's something that we're kind of continually monitoring. We have a staff person that is heavily involved with that project, and so he's been monitoring what's been going on with that and providing updates to our boards. But you know, there may be some future opportunities for participation on this project, and if there are, in addition to posting them on our social sites, I'll make sure to send out an email specifically to this committee so that you guys can have those links if there are more to come. I'm not too sure because I'm not directly involved with it, so I don't want to promise something that's not going to happen, but if there is anything, we can certainly pass that along to you guys. All right.
Are you gonna, are you gonna share
yeah,
your, the citizen engagement plans on social media so that we can also share them?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you did.
But I can do another one.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just find it.
Yeah.
Tim, has the thoroughfare plan been approved yet?
So that's a very good question. I can give you an update on that. Well, the answer is no, but It is progressing. So we are in the stage when we are reaching out to the development community to get their feedback on it. So it's been through our office, it's been through the local government engineers. We've given a couple updates to our boards. And so from their perspective, it's complete enough to take to the development community for those folks to give us some input on. We are hoping to have a meeting either this month or early next month, so sometime within the next few weeks, to kind of solicit some of their feedback and see what concerns they might have with it, or if they think, maybe they think it's great. I don't know. But so I've been reaching out to those folks. It's a pretty big group. We're trying to kind of, get some of the people that do big development projects, some of the surveyors, some of the lawyers that are involved with this sort of thing. So trying to get everyone's schedule together is a little challenging. So we're kind of breaking it up into a couple different meetings so that, we can accommodate everyone's different schedules. But it is moving.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I do want to leave a chance for anyone who's watching the stream to comment. Maureen, have we had any comments come in yet, or questions or anything?
No comments so far, but we
Okay.
can give it the minute.
Of course, yes. So we'll give it one more minute to see if anybody has anything they want to add. And I guess while we're waiting for that, I'll just go ahead and thank everybody on the committee for showing up tonight. We really do appreciate your input on all of these things. It is very valuable to us to have people from a lot of different parts of the community who maybe aren't always involved in some of our other work to kind of get the chance to share their experience with us and just let us know what's going on from their perspective. It's always good to get more of a broad perspective on some of these sorts of things. All right, and it looks like we are now at a minute. So Maureen, last call for any comments?
There are no comments on YouTube or Facebook.
All right, so with that, unless there are some objections, we will adjourn. And I would like to mention, just as a very last thing, that our last two meetings this year will be September 8th and December 8th. So September 8th, December 8th, as we discussed, those will both be virtual at 6 p.m. All right, so without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.